एक वक्त था जब हमारी फिल्म्स में जो सॉन्ग्स होते थे वो इम्पोर्टेंट होते थे बिकॉज म्यूजिक वाज प्राइमरली सॉन्ग्स oriented. लेकिन ओवर अ डेकेड दिस स्पेस हैज shrunk and now background scores have become equally important. फिल्म की ओवरऑल थीम से लेकर किसी पर्टिकुलर कैरेक्टर या सीन को टेम्पो को क्रिएट करने में बैकग्राउंड म्यूजिक टुडे हैज started playing a great role. और आज पंजाब केसरी नवोदय टाइम्स से हमारे खास मेहमान हैं two talented music composers who've been doing wonders in this particular field. So a warm welcome to Naren and Benedict Taylor.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, first obvious question is, how did a London-based music composer end up collaborating with some guy sitting in Mumbai?
Well, I came to India some years ago to have a residency at an educational music institution in South Mumbai, and a very good friend of ours, an old friend of Narain's, was working with me, and she introduced me to Narain, and we got to talking and got on well, and immediately saw eye to eye regarding music and ideas and what have you. And then sometime later, when I was back in London, we'd always talked about having a collaboration or trying to work together at some point. And Narain got asked to write the music for That Girl in Yellow Boots, and called me up and asked if I'd like to collaborate, and we sort of went from there, really.
Okay. Naren, according to you, what was that one thing that made you call Benedict for this collaboration?
Like you said, by that point, we'd already become good friends, and we'd been discussing trying to do something together at some point. I had been working a lot in theater, and he'd come, we'd done some workshops where he'd done improvised music with all of us as actors and musicians there. And from that point on, we'd always talked about trying to do something because that went really well. So as soon as that chance came up with That Girl in Yellow Boots, I knew immediately that, hey, this is a really good opportunity to try and figure something out.
Okay, so the body of work that you both have done together as collaborators is very different. The kind of background scores that you've created are very experimental, new kind of music that we've started hearing now. But you both have different musical backgrounds. So you think that helped you make your music experimental?
Definitely.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think so. Yeah, in that we both come to it with a very different background. Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of ideas in common, and ways of thinking which are often very closely aligned, but we also think about things and have different tastes and think about things differently, so I think that in collaborating, that can only add to seeing things further and pushing things further in your own space and from your own space. Personally, Narain, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I think also we have I think what's nice is, what made us, I think, want to work with each other was that we had a very similar ideas about what we liked in music or how we saw music, if that makes any sense. But the ways we create music are really quite different because of the different backgrounds we have. So I think that ends up complementing each other really well. I think the experimental nature comes from just our interest in music and wanting to always try and do something different. Okay. But there is definitely something that's very different with how we make music together, because we both do it quite differently independently. So together that makes it's a great combination, because you end up seeing things from a perspective you wouldn't have otherwise.
Correct. And since we're talking about this whole interest in music that both of you individually have, so I want to ask you, both of you, one by one, how did this romance with music for you guys start, and when did it start from?
Well, I started sort of fairly formally when I was like 6, playing the violin.
Oh.
In the Western classical sense, when you take on a teacher at that age and you start your studies. And my sister had been a string player, and so it was it's quite normal in the school system that you might learn an instrument or whatever. And so we found a very good teacher, and I took it from there and went with that. That was the most defining kind of area that I was working in. And I went through the teens and playing the violin, and then the viola, and then I went to classical music college. But that starting was definitely a kind of a formal classical training for me, long time ago now. But yeah.
Okay, what about you, Naren?
I grew up in a house where everyone really, really loved music, and very different kinds of music. So my parents listened to Hindustani music, and my dad listened to jazz. They liked old Hindi film songs, and I had cousins who I looked up to a lot, who listen to very different kinds of music, like heavy metal and things like that, and rock and all of that, and electronic music later. So that was great. That there was and my grandmother was very involved with Hindustani classical. So there used to be concerts at home whenever she could organize them. So there was an environment where I was always surrounded by music, and I think because of that, I became very passionate about music from a young age. I would always like to listen to stuff and seek out things later with the internet and listen to music a lot. And I also studied piano for a couple of years as a child.
Okay.
And then later I picked up guitar. And then, as a guitar player in school and college, small bits in a school band and things like that. But in college, I got into making music on the computer and learning how to compose on your own that way. And that was what really got me into composition.
Okay. But music, when we talk about songs, is very different. And when we talk about the background score overall for, whether it is a film, whether it is a series, according to you, because you two are composers who are doing great work in this particular field, how much do you think it holds weightage?
I think for the listener and the viewer, I think it holds a great weight in experiential terms, even if depending how much people recognize it or not. And across any type of cinema, people often, you don't necessarily hear all the music that's happening, and that's sometimes the point. But I think so in as an experience, I think it does. But I suppose in industry terms, maybe that's a little different.
Yeah, the way I think we'd always approach score, or the kind of scores we really like, involve trying to figure out or hoping to answer the question of why the music is there in the film. And usually we hope that the music is doing something that wouldn't have happened if the music wasn't there. You wouldn't have felt a certain way, or a certain meaning might not have come across, or a certain mood may not have been built, or a certain sense of time may not have been apparent. So without those things, then a film that needs that to express itself, a score is a very key part of how a film may make sense or tell its story. So I think, it can be a very important, score can be an incredibly important part of that process.
Okay. So, but once you come across a project that, you are interested in working with, is there a creative process that you follow in terms of what music you need to bring to that particular project?
Yeah, I think there is usually, in the sense that we tend to ask the similar questions that I just mentioned about what the role of music in that project is. And that can change depending on when you get involved in the project. So it can change when you're involved at a script level, you're speaking far more conceptually. And there's also an opportunity then for the music to interact with the edit, maybe even interact with the shoot, because the music might be there earlier and the director can have it in his or her mind, and same with the editors. If you get involved later, sometimes at a far more advanced stage in the project, there may already be music in the film, which is in the edit. The editor is used to try and make sense of the story, or to construct the story. So that's a conversation where you jump in, where some of that conversation has already started.
Okay.
But then once we are in, I think it's a conversation then with the director, it's that dialogue with the director and editor and with the film itself, to try and see what is music bringing to this table that wasn't there earlier, and what is the contribution that it can have to the story. And that can lead to very different approaches on the basis of each film, of what questions you may ask for, whether it's based on a character, whether it's based on a mood, whether, each project might have a very different set of questions or answers.
Okay. Is it a very tedious process that you guys go through? Because of course, in a movie, there are many characters, there are many situations, there are a lot of ups and downs that obviously, we experience as audience. So is that a very tedious process or a long process for you guys?
It can be a long process, but I wouldn't describe it as tedious. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because you love your job, so it's not tedious.
Yeah, quite lucky in being able to say that, that it's not, exactly, not tedious. It can be long, and it can be difficult and time consuming, and require a lot of energy and headspace to crack those areas that you need to figure out. But it's not a tedious thing.
I think it's fun. It's a lot of, it's very interesting. Yeah. I studied literature in college. I also worked as an actor, and I also wanted to work as a writer at some point. So some of those things all come together when you're trying to score a film, because you are storytelling with with the project itself. So it does become like an actor in the film. It does become like you're writing along with the film as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun also studying the film to try and see, okay, what is the language of this project? Like, like how we may have approached Newton versus how we've approached Shirley now versus say a project like Ray, which we've done. Each one of them, the answers that come and the dialogue that you have with the project can lead to very, very different, approaches.
Great, great. Okay, but I want to know, like, you have given your music for films also, and of course, some great web series as well. Is the process similar, or there is any difference when you're creating for different platforms?
It's quite. I mean, there are similarities in that you ultimately it is that the questions we spoke of. You ask the same questions of what you feel the music needs to do, and it is still storytelling. But obviously, with a series, it's over a much longer period of time, and so you have a lot more detail that you can build in building slowly any musical arc that you have across the story. So that allows for a lot more involvement. There's a lot more different subplots and sub themes, and you can build that tapestry can be a little bit more intricate over the course of a series. Also, there's different ways you approach a theme and the thematic material of how often it comes and what the theme might be. Because obviously, with a series, it's so much longer. It may not even be one series. It may be seasons. It may not just be one season. It may be several in a series. So that the nature of how you write that theme and how it needs to build and how often it plays, it's approached a little differently structurally than how you would with a film.
Okay, but Benedict, I'm curious to know that typically films in Bollywood or Hindi films are very different from what is made in the West, simply because we have a lot of song and play. But obviously, as I said, that space has shrunk over a decade, and background music has also become important. So when you were signing up for your first Hindi project, first Bollywood project, were there any apprehensions in your mind about will I understand this bass or what will it be?
I don't think so. Actually, I think that I kind of being asked to do it by Narain and with Narain, and it seemed very exciting. And having with my own work gone into at times a very experimental area of contemporary music, it seemed like a natural. It seemed like the most natural thing to try a project which would throw me into a very different space. Compositionally or in recording terms and whatever you're doing, it seemed like an interesting step in that if there's things you don't know or you don't understand, you'll have to figure them out. I also think that I think Narain and I have talked about this quite a lot. I think that we have been lucky in feeling that I don't think it's very relevant to think about geographical difference in sort of creation of art forms and material. I think that it's more interesting to think about the project that you're involved with, wherever that's from, and whatever the different qualities and nuances are going to be. If you go in with an open mind to a situation, it doesn't really matter what the makeup of it is and where it's from in my mind.
Okay. But, like recently you've given music for Sherni, and the director, Amit, he said that this was one project that was difficult to score music for. Did you guys also feel that? And what happens when you come across projects that you find that it's difficult to score music for?
I mean...
Yeah, sorry, what were you about to say, Bennett?
Yeah. I mean, there's difficulties in the scale of the film and the breadth of the film and what you have to find and draw upon and dig into to discover in the film, so these things are never easy per se, what were you going to say, Narain?
Yeah, I think with Sherni, what Amit was referring to with the difficulties was that they had in the writing of the film, they had really tried to walk a tightrope with really making sure they gave the politics its space, and we weren't with the score. Then we weren't trying to overly moralize anything or simplify anything, or do things like demonize the jungle, but make the jungle a character into itself. So with that, there's a certain past precedent, of like certain ways that one wouldn't want to approach those scenes. Like how if someone heard a certain kind of music against a certain kind of thing, it would make them think something else very quickly. So there were a lot of these clear options that would have been easy options to maybe do to a scene that Amit was very clear that he wanted us to avoid. So then it makes for a challenging and fun process to then try and find the musical thread through that eye of that needle that says the story and gives everyone their space without really trampling on anything they're trying to do.
Okay. And talking about the future, so what are the other projects that we get to see both of you collaborating and giving us again great music?
We have a short film. We just have a short film that had come out as part of the Ray series, which Abhishek Chaubey had directed. There's another one coming out sometime soon, which he's directed as well. We're working on 3 web series, which unfortunately we can't name right now, but will be happening over the course of this year and the next. That's primarily what's happening within the film world. Yeah.
All right, great. Because we'd love to see great music coming our way, not just in the form of songs, but of course through background music also. As I said, it takes the tempo of the whole story forward. It helps clearly in that. But lastly, before I say goodbye to both of you, we all understand what circumstances and situations we are under because of the COVID. So is there any kind of message that you would, or a suggestion that you guys would, through our medium, convey to the audience right now?
There's an organization I volunteer with called Artists for Artists Mumbai. The Instagram handle I can send to you as well, A4A Mumbai. So they are during COVID looking for donations and volunteers for people who can help with call centers, as well as donate to their foundation, which is where they're making sure musicians and artists in Mumbai who can't afford to buy food get rations for a month.
Okay.
But that's definitely something, if anyone can visit and contribute to, it would be great.
Great. Benedict, you would like to add?
Well, I mean, that's a really, really good thing that Narain's involved with there. And everybody needs to take care of themselves. I do hope everybody can try and get when vaccines are available, as quickly as possible, get them done.
Great. Yeah, because we all are looking forward to good times ahead where everything is back to normal once again. And we've gotten used to this new normal of things, but of course we miss a lot of things back from how they were. So we really hope things get back to how they should be. So thank you so much, both of you, for this time that you've given me, and wishing you all the good luck for your future endeavors. And thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.